Hi, I'm Rachel from Echidna Sewing, and today I'm showing you how to make a simple zippered pouch. They are really useful and are great for storing your sewing tools. So in here you can see I have my echidna clips. They could be a cosmetic pouch or a pencil case. Really, it's up to you. To make the zippered sewing pouch, I have used all these elements here on the table. So I've got 2 fat quarters, I've got my echidna clips, my regular sewing needles. My secret weapon is my wash away quilter's tape. I have a zip, a friction pen, as for marking, a rotary cutter and ruler, plus purple thang, and my NV50S is the machine I'm using today, with solely the zipper foot. So we're constructing the whole thing using the zipper foot. So let's get started. To make the zippered pouch, you will need 2 pieces of outside fabric. So this one, 9 inches by 7 inches, and the same for a lining. So I'm using this for my outside and this for my lining. One of the most important things that I always talk about with fabric is that it needs to be prepared well, and I think ironing is the most underrated thing to do. So I have actually sprayed this fabric with our spray starch, and that is because it just adds some body to the fabric before I cut it. It just makes it easier for cutting. And with the starch, with the heaven sent starch, actually spray and leave it a few seconds before you press. So I do that and then press, but this will just give it some body so that it will be cut well and cleanly for sewing. So I do that to both my pieces, although this one had been stored a little longer, so it was more wrinkly. This one just has a, not sure if you can see through here, has a line. So out of my 2 fat quarters, I need to cut 2 rectangles, 9 inches by 7 inches. Okay, so they are ready to go, so I'll just set them aside. The other thing that we need to cut is our zipper tabs. So this size would be 3 inches by 2 inches. However, this is one thing I wanted to show you, which is what I would call a hack. And that is, if you're a quilter like me, you will have old bindings, remnants of old bindings, and they are about the size that we need. So I have actually taken this old binding, and I just need to cut it 2 inches by 3 inches. So I'm just going to go and measure here and cut 3 inches, and then show you how I'm going to iron this for my zipper tab. So I take my ruler, I'm using the mat to cut, so at 3 inches, grab my rotary cutter and cut my length of zipper tab, and I'll need 2 of these, so 1 for each end. So 1, 2, and then I'm going to press them into shape so that they're easy to attach to the zip. To do this, I will open it up, but you can see I've already got a very definite line through the centre. I'm going to use that line, this one, to line up my centres on that fold, and then press. So this is a zipper tab 1. Then I'll do the other side. And I need 2 of these. That, and then I press that in the centre. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, because these will be cut down to the size of the zipper. You'll see what I mean once I start constructing. So more ironing. Okay, so we've got everything ironed. So now I'm just going to put the mat away and we'll start cutting. I'm using a 9 by 9 inch square ruler, so you can see it's 9 by 9 to cut my rectangles. So the other option is you can actually use your mat if you like to cut your rectangles as well, because you have numbering down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. Remembering we're cutting 9 by 7, so I can use this, make sure it's straight, and cut up here. And I need 2 of these. So that is actually 9. I'll also clean up the edges of this fabric. So I've got this marked on my ruler at 7 inches. So remember, we're cutting 9 by 7. And just make sure that these are clean cuts. And then I'm going back here. You can see there's an overhang here because I know that that is a fluffy edge, which I don't like. So I'm going to go down here to 9. Cut this side. Turn it round. So then on my ruler, you can see the 7, sorry, on my mat, the 7 and the 9 mark. Straighten that up. And this will give me the rectangle that I need. So I have one rectangle 9 by 7. I'm going to go ahead and cut the other 3. So we need 4 in total. So 2 for the front and 2 for the lining. So here we have my lining, my outer, I have my zip and my 2 zipper tabs. One thing I recommend is that your zipper should be an inch smaller than your zipper pouch. So if your zipper pouch is 9 inches, your zip should be 8 inches. So this one is 9 inches, and here's some of my top tips for how to deal with zippers. So one of the things I do when working with zipper tabs is I do actually cut my zip off almost at the metal stopper. Now that is because when you're working with a zipper foot, if you have the metal stopper there, your foot can run over it or your needle can hit it. So by cutting this off, I know that I'm going to tuck my zipper into my zipper tab, and when I drive down here with my foot, you will see that it won't hit the needle won't hit the zipper stopper. This is where my magic tape comes in. So this is my quilter's wash away tape. So you'll probably notice that I'm not using any pins at all for this part of the process, and that is because I use the tape for positioning because it holds it in place while I'm sewing, and I don't have to stop and pull the pins out. So she's very sticky, so I'll just put this on here. Then I'm going to remove the protective cover, place my zipper in the tab, and do this for each end. I do not trim this until after I've sewn, so you can see that sticks really well. So I'll repeat that. I leave this end open like this, but I do grab my other zipper tab and repeat that same process. I have found wash away quilter's tape really useful for working with zips. You don't want to have to think about pulling out the pins as you're driving. There's one. And probably you can see I'm positioning the tape nearer the edge of the tab too, rather than the center. So then with this one you can do this, but I actually like to pull it together a little bit more, so place that one there. And it is pushed into the fold. I do try and get it as near the fold to the top as I can, and that is positioned. So that's the zipper tab securely in place. The next thing I do prior to any stitching is I use my special wash away tape again right on the very edge of the zip, and I'll place this all along, and this is where my fabric will be placed. I don't include the tabs, and I leave the protective sheet on until I'm ready to position my fabric. But I do this now. And again, near the outside edge of the zip rather than the where the teeth are. I'm using a 3mm zip today. For this project, I've chosen to use a nylon zip as well. You can get all sorts of zips, including metal zippers, but I wouldn't recommend it because we are sewing over using our zipper tabs. Okay, so we're prepared for everything. Now it's time to start sewing. So I've set up my sewing machine, and the first step is to look at my stitch length. So I've got it on 2.5, and I have attached my zipper foot, and you can see that the needle is to the left. So when I put my zipper in with my zipper tab, I can see where I am driving. Okay, so I'm going to put the foot down and start stitching. This is why I like using a nylon zip, because I can easily drive over the zip with no problem at all. You can't do that with a metal zip. So that is, see, that's nicely stitched. I'm going to cut my top and bottom thread. Using the wash away tape has allowed this to be perfectly even front and back. So the next step for me is just to trim. So I'm going to trim these exactly the width of the zip at each end. That is pretty much the zip prepared with the zipper tabs. So now I'm just going to pop the machine aside and prepare the fabric to be sandwiched between the zip. Okay, so the next step is we're going to add our front of our zippered pouch. So to do that, I'm just going to mark the center on this side, and usually I just iron that, but so you can see, I'm going to mark it with a friction pen. So that's the center of one of my fronts, and then I need to mark the center of my zip. You guessed it, these two have to match up. So what I'll do is I take my sticky off and place my two edges together of the zip and the fabric like this, and I gently press down. So this is where your purple thing comes in handy. Just making sure that is even, and I do the same on this side. So the zip itself actually gets sandwiched between the front and the lining. So I'm just going to open that a little so this can stay accurate. I'm not worried that there's no sticky on either of my zipper tabs. So then the next step is I push this over, press this down with my fingers, then I cut another piece of my quilter's sticky tape, and again I'm placing it close to the edge along here, So great for zips. And then I'll cut. And while I'm here, I'm going to do this side as well because I will need to do both sides to create my pouch. And this does wash out, so I'm not worried if you can see a little bit of the sticky, because with a couple of washes it'll be gone. So then I press the tape down, remove the protective sheet, and then take my lining piece, and I don't need to mark the centre because I have the front to line it up with, making sure the edges are together. You can just easily pull it off and reposition if you need to. Perfect. Now the next step is I'm going to stitch along here with my zipper foot. One of the things I am going to do is I'm going to stitch from here, not from the edge of my fabric. So I start on my zipper tab and go down here. I'll stop before I get to the zip, and then I will open the zip more so it's easier for me to stitch. And then I'll stitch along the end just to the zipper tab. Okay, I'm going to grab the machine again. So I'm just going to start sewing down here, I'll stop, and then we will open the zip a bit further. With my zipper foot, I am using the centre here on the edge of my fabric so I know that I'm sewing straight. And I can feel with this finger, here's my zip here, so I have to stop. And I shall just open the zip up further so it's out of the line of fire, and we're good to go. Okay, that's one side stitched. Now I'm going to repeat the same process for the other side. Okay, so I've taken this one. You can see that that's my stitching. So I've taken it out of the machine and just folded both of these back. And you can get an idea for what it will look like on the front and back. So now I'm actually going to close the zip up again because it gives you a better start. I'm going to take off my protective piece and place this. I don't need to mark the center because I have this front piece to match it up with. I just need to align my tops along here, which is what I am doing to make sure it's straight. I just use this to press it down. You can see where the zip is, it always pushes the fabric slightly away, so that's why we move the zip as we're sewing. So then I'm going to do that and put the lining in so the front and the lining are sandwiched once again, and place this here. Okay, so again I'm going to stitch down here and we'll have both linings, fronts completed. So let me grab the machine. Okay, so now I'm going to open it up and need to give her a good press so that I can make sure that my fronts and backs are even and that it looks right. So give her a press and then we'll come back and top stitch around the top. So just to iron, you're just pressing this down on each side. I'm going to check the back to make sure that that is laying as flat as it can turn. I'll give that a quick press. And then same for this side. So you might be able to see some of the sticky tape here, but as I said earlier, it will just wash away, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch around the top of the zipper. Okay, so now I'm going to top stitch around the zip and the zipper tab to hold it in place. I will only go to here and across, not right to the end. So this is how I do it. Start down here. And I do stop and stitch along where I stitched my zipper tab. Okay, so that's my top stitching completed. Now we're going to put it all together. So once you've finished top stitching the zip, the next step is to clip everything together. So I've got my echidna clips, and we'll start with the front and back of the pouch. So these will be stitched all the way around, and I've just got the raw edges come together. And then when I get to where the zipper tab and the zippers, I actually am squeezing them together and pushing these seams up, and then I'll put one clip here to hold all four of those seams. And then down the side, one. The bottom is where I will leave my gap so I can turn it through. Actually, one thing I didn't say to you is you need to unzip your zip at least halfway so that we can turn it through. So I leave a gap of about 2 to 3 inches when I'm sewing. The bigger the gap, the easier it is to turn it through. And I go all the way around to the other side, and once again, I squeeze down my zipper tab, squeeze those seams together, and then place a clip on there. I do just double check that that's right, and then we're good to go. So I'm going to start stitching here. I'm going to drive down along all the way around here, down here, and then stop here. I'll reverse at beginning and end, and then we will turn it in the right way, give it a press, and then stitch the bottom. Let me get the machine. Okay, so I'm going to start in the bottom corner here and stitch along. Stitch length is still about average between 2 and 2.4, 2.5, and I am going to reverse a little at the beginning and then just drive round with my zipper foot, as you can see. Stop, turn it round. I've got to do one more stitch on that one. And so I'm using my zipper foot here on the edge of my fabric. So that is what I'm using as my stitch width. And you can figure that out too, depending on what zipper foot you're using. So I take out the clips as I go. I'll try and drive as close as I can get to the 4 seams here before I take that clip out. And I am using my left hand to hold that tab down. Now I know that tab is there. And this is one of the reasons that I use the zipper foot for this, because you can see will easily get past that tab, says Rachel, who lifts it up. But it does more so than a regular foot. And I have lifted my foot up several times just to help it get past the bulk. Then all the way down. Okay, so I've driven all the way around. Pretty happy with that. The next step is I'm actually just going to trim off these little corners here, just so that when I turn it in the right way, they won't be rounded, it'll be a bit more pointy. And then we'll just be able to slip stitch the bottom close. So just trim these long threads, but where the opening is at the bottom, I'm actually going to start pushing and pushing, and this is where it's key for the zip to be open, because this is your lining, and so it's like a double unfold or fold, depending on which way you think it. So you can see that's my outer. So I'm going to use my purple fang and poke it into this corner so it's more square and less rounded. So there's one. And then same with this corner. Two. And then I just kind of use my fingers and wiggle it a bit. Poke my zipper pulls at the top. There's a little gap, and that is intentional. That is why we've sewn them this way with the top stitch around the zip. And then I'm going to poke this little corner in. We're almost finished, apart from sewing the bottom together. Now, some people hand stitch. Rachel doesn't. What I do is I would normally change my thread to black, but I'm going to keep it on this colour so that you can see. I fold this together. I would place my zipper foot on here again. I'm going to just stitch along the bottom, closing the hole. You can slip stitch it yourself with a needle if you like, hand stitching, but I figure while I've got a machine, I'll do everything by machine. That's it. That is a simple zippered pouch that you can create for a pencil case, for cosmetics, for sewing equipment. Done. Finished. We'd love to see what you make, so tag us on Instagram and show us what you're doing with your simple zipper pouches as well.